Hey guys, some days ago some viewers and friends told me it could help them to see a master's game about Benko Gambit to get some typical ideas and plans about what could happen after the opening. I was searching and found this nice game where at some point they had this position on the board. Black played something pretty strong and they won the game just in some moves. Of course we will analyze it very soon, but first let's see how they got this position on the board. Keep watching. So this game was played between two strong masters. Belous was white, Andriasian was playing as black. Let's see, d4, knight f6, c4, c5, d5, b5. This is Benko Gambit. If you have not studied this, you can check my video about how to play Benko Gambit. There are some explanations move by move, also general ideas and plans for the middle game. So after b5, they continue with the main lines. He takes b5, a6, b takes, bishop takes, knight c3, d6, knight f3, g6, e4, and bishop takes f1. Now white is going to lose the possibility to castle, so that's some part of the compensation black is getting here. So bishop g7, g3, black castles, king g2, and knight bd7. And here we can say we are starting the middle game. And in this position there are two main moves for white. White can play here rook e1 or a3. Those are the best moves for white. Rook e1 just improving the rook, also protecting the pawn, and a3 controlling g4, avoiding the plan knight g4, knight e5. In the game, white is playing rook e1, and then black continues with knight g4, as it is logical. White is playing rook e2 here, black continues with queen a5, and then rook c2. And here I want to make a pause to highlight the plan white used here. It is rook e1, rook e2, and rook c2. The idea is to protect very well b2 and c3. Now the bishop could be developed more easily. Also moves like b3 now are more easily played since the rook is helping in the protection of the knight. So black continues here with queen a6, trying to control very well light squares. Now with the knight coming to e5, there will be some nice coordination. White plays knight e1 and then knight g e5. White plays b3. The idea, of course, to bring the bishop over the fianchetto to face the powerful black bishop on g7. And then we have the move c4, disconnecting pawns, opening lines here on the c file. Also clearing c5 for the other knight. White continues with b4 and then knight d3. We are taking the pawn on b4. If white takes, then we will take, and then the knight on c3 will be hanging with when the rook moves. So white plays here rook b1, just protecting the pawn on b4. Knight takes c1, queen takes c1, and then knight b6, just improving the knight, also protecting c4 very well. White continues with queen e3, and now this nice move queen b7. The queen is now in the same line or the same diagonal as white king. There are ideas now with a6, also with f5, destroying this chain of pawns. And since white king is behind, this is now going to be really dangerous for white. Also, when the queen moves out of the a file, there are ideas with rook a3, pinning and bringing the other rook and increasing the pressure on c3. So after queen b7, white is playing here knight f3 and then rook a3, just improving the rook, pinning, knight d4, and then knight a4, increasing the pressure in this pin. White continues with knight b5. Now they are getting the rook, but we can still take here on c3. White takes here on c3. Notice if they take the rook, then we just take this rook, and then we just take this pawn on b4. This position is just very good for black. So instead of taking the rook, they have to take the knight on c3. Black continues here with f5. As we said, this is a typical idea in these positions. Now this is also opening the f file. White continues with rook b, c1, protecting very well c3, just in case the queen has to recapture over here. And this is the position we had at the beginning of the video. Here black played something pretty strong, very interesting. I would like you to pause the video and try to find it. I will explain it right now. The move black played in this position was this interesting f4. Also the pawn on b4 was hanging, but then there could be some capture here. It takes f5, and this is not clear. White is checking, white is taking pawns over here. So the line is not that clear. It's not wrong, but it's not completely clear. So f4 is much better in this position. And the idea with this move is that after pawn takes pawn, which is almost forced for white, because if they don't take, we will play f3, and the pawn is a piece helping in the attack. So probably they have to take, as it happened in the game, and then we can continue with bishop a6. After this, we are going to recapture the pawn back, and then the bishop is going to be a great piece. The rook is also going to be a great piece. The king is open, unprotected over here, so the position is going to be very well for black. White continues with queen h3, then black captures, rook b1, and then this nice move, bishop e5. Notice the bishop here is very well protected, but also is controlling a lot of squares all over the board. White checks with queen e6, and then king g7, and now knight e2. Here there is another move I really enjoyed in this game. If you want, you can pause the video and try to find it. I will say it right now. The move black played in this position was this nice h5. Also, there was this move rook a f3. It was very playable. It was strong, doubling rooks on the f file, putting a lot of pressure. It was great, really strong, this rook f3. However, this h5 is interesting because when we analyze it, it seems like, well, what is this guy doing? What is the idea of this move? He's doing nothing. But there is some hidden idea here, and the problem is that the queen is in trouble now. Black is playing rook f6 and getting the queen on e6, and it's not clear how can white defend against this. Probably the best move was knight g3, but then h4, the knight would have to go back or something. The position is actually very well for black. They have decisive advantage according to some engines. So instead of moving the knight, white couldn't support the pressure here, and they played rook takes c4. Now after a move like rook f6, the queen could go to c8. However, in this position, black can just capture the pawn on a2. Now the rook is in the 7th rank, attacking the knight, but also attacking f2 if the knight moves. White continues with king f1, and then this subtle but extremely strong move, queen a7. From a7, from long distance, the queen is attacking and creating a really strong threat. Notice there's no way to defend this pawn now. After f3 we can take it, after f4 we can take it again, and white is lost. So this position is just winning. White still finds some tricky defense. White is playing here rook c5, blocking or interfering the queen, and the idea is that if we capture there will be a check, and they have some compensation, some checks over there, and then they survive a little in that line. However, black is playing something better than just taking the rook. If you want, try to find a good move for black in this position. I would say the move the master played right now. In this position, black just played rook a1, which is a subtle and also a very strong move. The idea is that we are getting the rook, and if white trades, then bishop takes, and there is a big problem here. We are getting the rook, and if the rook moves, we have checkmate over here. So after rook a1, I think white took on a1, and then they resigned immediately. However, if you thought in this position about other moves, for example, like rook takes e2 is also fine. Actually, this was probably the best move in the position. And then after king takes, then queen a2 is just winning the game. We have checks, we have threats over the 2nd rank. We are also getting the rook on c5. So white is completely lost in this position. The question for today: are you ready now to play Benko Gambit in your blitz games? Let me know in the comments. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. Help my channel with some like if you think this was good. Subscribe so you get notifications for my next videos. Never stop believing. See you in the next.